Well, here we are again for another episode of the Blue Eyed Devil podcast, streaming on Spotify, Amazon, Google Podcasts, which I understand is going to be just YouTube very soon. And we're here with a very special guest, someone I've sat down with before and have had a bunch of attention given to us on social media as we had a fascinating conversation on resilience in business. My friend and colleague, CEO and founder of NVISION, George Arabian. George, welcome.
Thank you for having me. So would this be considered like part 2, volume 2? I've been watching Rocky lately a lot. So
I hope it's not 5 or 6 because it gets really bad.
Definitely not 5. 6 was terrible too, wasn't it? It was. Yeah, you're right.
Although I will say I love the Creed movies. Have you seen the Creed movies?
I watched the Creed. Was it 3? Which is the latest one?
3. Yeah.
I just saw it. It
Yeah.
was really good.
Yeah, my son and I have been watching it, and it's even more motivating than like Rocky 2, which is the most motivating, I think.
It's totally.
George, it's good to sit down with you. And is it part 2? I don't know. We'll see.
See where we take it.
We'll see. I think this is a little bit different atmosphere. My audience might be a little different than your audience in the digital marketing field versus. Sure. I was thinking about it. Sometimes when I want to welcome people to the podcast, I want to speak to particular groups that I've known over the years. And, you know, it could be just as much, you know, hello, Duchess of Markham crew, as it could be St. Paul's Cathedral in London, Ontario.
For sure.
So with an interesting past comes interesting audiences.
Absolutely.
And how you reach them and how you tell stories to them and how you connect with them. And I think that's exactly what you're all about.
Absolutely. I think storytelling and authenticity in those stories is absolutely a wonderful way to bond human connections.
So is it fair to say that marketing really is a storytelling profession?
You know, marketing is a very broad term, and I think people use it loosely. I think the essence of marketing is connecting with the audiences that you're trying to connect with, whether you're a service provider or trying to sell a product, but genuinely connecting with them is really where marketing is today. It's no longer about just trying to, you know, force feed somebody something they don't need because we're too wise now. There's infinite data available to us. And it's no longer the days of the 50s and 60s and 70s where it was a newspaper print ad and you had to have this thing because it said these wonderful things that you didn't know were real or fake.
Yep.
You can validate everything these days very quickly with infinite data. So I think it's about connecting. I think it's just about genuinely connecting with your audience.
So it's about building relationships.
Totally.
Right. So, and I always think that's really what storytelling is, right? It's about building relationships because it's about telling what, I was a number of years ago, I was working as a hospital chaplain in a mental health hospital back when I was like 25, 26 years old. And somebody used the term story wisdom to me. And it was about the genuine connection isn't just about encountering someone where they are in their shoes right now, but being able to see where they've come from and how they got there. And I saw a clip the other day on YouTube of Shannon Sharp, the great tight end. And he was saying, you can't judge me for who I am today because you never saw Shannon go hungry. You never saw Shannon in the rain. You never saw Shannon get left behind. You see Shannon sitting, telling everyone everything all the time. And so marketing, as I see it, and I get that it's a broad term, but the work that you do, as I've gotten to know you a little bit and got to know your business a little bit, is helping people share their story wisdom.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good way to frame it for sure. With context and authenticity, I think is the layers that you need because much like the Shannon Sharp example where everyone sees him in a $3,000 suit talking a big game about the sport, you don't see the trials that he's gone through and the difficulties and the challenges he's faced to get to where he is. Those were probably very motivating factors for him. So oftentimes, you don't have the luxury of presenting the entire lifespan of somebody's story or some products or services story in front of an audience that is very short with attention span.
How was it, 6 seconds?
Yeah, I think it's now. I read a recent study. It was like 4 seconds.
Yeah.
So, which is fair. I mean, so I think one of the things that you have to be very conscientious of as a marketer, and if you can dial this in, I think it becomes one of your real key value propositions. If you can dial in and understand that time is all we have. So if you're wasting mine, then you've taken advantage of me. And whether I know it psychologically or not, I no longer want to take part in this exercise of trying to figure out what you do or what you sell. So being very conscientious of people's time becomes a real integral part of marketing.
If we don't want to waste time, we want to invest in time, right? And I'm going to tell a quick George Arabian story, because I like to do this when I sit down with guests, because anyone I sit down with, I have a personal connection to, even if it has become a professional connection. And I remember I sat down with George a number of months ago, and he didn't realize, but we'd actually had a 15-minute conversation like 4 years earlier. And I had been set up to talk to George because I was launching my new business, the 403LC, which we talked about a few weeks ago. And George gave me very good advice, which in the end had me realize that I was nowhere near ready to have a conversation with George yet. And he was very gracious to give me time in December. And we sat down, and I was at a bit of a crossroads where I was trying to decide what I was going to do with my next steps in my professional career. I was leaving crisis work behind. I was getting back into the 403LC and some coaching stuff. And it was right before Christmas. And I don't think people realize, and not everyone has this gift. When somebody sees you and sees your work and gives a little bit of belief behind it and paints a picture of what it might look like, and tells a story and sees the wisdom behind it, it's very motivating. It's very motivating. And that was my meeting with you.
No, thanks, man.
December.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I think, I think if you sit and you listen, if you're open to feedback, which most people will give you the time of day to hear you out. And if you take that, and if it's something that resonated with you, and you really take it to heart and you start to exercise the next steps, I think a lot of good comes from that. I mean, that's how I've learned my entire life, is from just picking up on some nuanced detail that somebody's mentioned to me, or, I've taken a nugget away from an all-day event that I was at, and one person said one sentence that was like, I want to pursue that a little further. I want to look into how that can impact my life, right?
I get it. I was a preacher for years, right? You know that. I served as a priest. And so I got up multiple times a week, and I was hopeful that people would take one sentence out of what I had to say.
Right.
Because sometimes that's all you got, right? Like you're going, just as human beings, that's all we're going to pick up. But you are an investor in people, and you are an investor in stories. And I talk about being a preacher and having done a lot of community service work over the years. I also know you're a community guy. You're a believer in community service. And I wanted to ask you, what's the reason behind that, right? You're an entrepreneur, a business owner. You do well financially. Why take the time to give back? What's the point?
I think for me, again, going back to, taking things away from whether it's inspiration or a suggestion, a recommendation from those who you aspire to be like. I've had a lot of great mentors through my life, parents, siblings, wife, individuals. I've interviewed, thousands of business owners. And I think the one that still to this day stands out to me was a comment made to me by somebody that I really truly look up to as a big community guy, who said to me, "Give to your community, and your community will give back to you."
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that was that one sentence that really stuck with me. And it was like, what does that mean? And at the time, being, in my early 20s, where I was trying to find my path, was like, unselfishly, of course, why wouldn't I want to give back to my community? So I did. And I remember specifically an event that was taking place where there was a charitable golf tournament. I'm not a golfer, nor do I like the sport. I like watching the sport, but
I know way too many people who are not golfers who like to golf.
we know a lot of really good golfers, but I'm not one of them. But it was a charity golf tournament, and this is early days NVISION. We're not making money. I don't have a lot to spare, and flat screen TVs had just come out, and he's like, donate a flat screen TV to this cause. And I'm like, whoa, like that's a lot of money, man. I was like probably $800 or $900 for like a 24-inch flat screen TV at the time, right?
That's great, eh?
So I'm like, you know what? I'll do it. I'll do it because it's giving back to the community. It's for a good cause. It's going to raise money. I think it was for the hospital foundation at the time. So I did it. And the response that got from, again, indirectly, I wasn't expecting anything, but the response, the thank yous, we're so grateful for, that was like, wow, well, like what a great feeling to know that you had an impact, whether small or large, an impact on your community. And I think that started the flywheel of really appreciating giving back into your local surrounding.
We've talked about mentoring young entrepreneurs, young leaders. Do you see this as a characteristic and a character that is emerging in the next generation, or is this something that needs to be nurtured?
Oh, man, I really hope so, because it's difficult right now. I think in the times that we're living in, where there's a lot of this remote activity, working without really having human connection. We're looking at things through a 2D screen, like sitting face to face with people and hearing their stories. I use the term a lot, like breaking bread. There's nothing better than breaking bread with someone, because I think it just creates this different relationship when you can sit and share a meal with someone and tell a story. And so I love those sorts of things. And I hope the generation that is today, and I hate to generalize it where it's a generational thing. I really hope that we can continue down the path of appreciating face-to-face interaction and how much value that truly brings somebody.
Oh, without a doubt. I spent years leading different communities, and there was nothing more important than gathering around the table together.
Yeah.
On a religious level, that looks a certain way for Catholics and Christians, gathering for Eucharist. But what always, whether it was a meal program that served the least fortunate in our neighborhood, or whether it was gathering for a shared meal or even coffee hour, just time to spend together and know each other, right? We lost that in the pandemic, didn't we?
I think we really did. And I think I'm just trying to reinforce the beauty of it, because there's a very majestic element to being able to sit around a table, share a drink, have a laugh, break bread. All of those elements, we've kind of lost touch, and the value that brings us. Yes, there's a convenience as well to getting out of bed and getting to your desk and getting your work done and not having to deal with rush hour traffic.
Yeah, how would you feel all your employees decide they don't want to come to work anymore?
Yeah, for sure. I love spending time with, the staff, because we have, more water cooler talk. And, as much as that sounds cliche, I think it's really valuable. It's like, what'd you do yesterday? Oh, what'd you do yesterday? Oh, my kid, or my sport, or my dog, or my cat, or, I saw this awesome painting, or listened to this awesome song. It's like awesome, like amazing.
Someone asked me the other day what my next step for the 403 is, what I'm going to do next. And I said, I'm going to throw a party. And they laughed at me for a whole bunch of reasons, but I wasn't kidding.
Yeah.
Right. Sometimes you just need to get everyone together and celebrate and let magic happen. Right. Like, because that's where real conversations happen, when people have an opportunity to relax and to be in a community environment in which they feel open enough to talk about blue sky thinking, something that is out of the box and not just the way we've always done it.
Yeah, I don't know. I always go back to these moments, and I don't know if everybody experiences this or not, but let's say you're at a great dinner or you're on vacation and you've just had this amazing human connection, these conversations, or you've met some individuals that kind of enlightened you in one way or another. and it's very euphoric, and then you get back to reality and there's a slight sense of depression, like that you're missing out, like that why can't that feeling be there all the time? And I just go back to, like, does that happen to everyone, or is it just a me thing? Because I truly get a euphoric high from being around people. Now, it's not every time, but most instances where my biggest rush is going to concerts. I love live music, and now I enjoy them even more because I take my older two boys with me, and I watch it through their eyes and get to experience the same bands that I've been watching for 20 years, 30 years, now through a different perspective. So I think human connection is absolutely important, and I really keep driving that message. And I think it translates into marketing, and why I feel so heavily that you have to understand your audience and what they want, and don't waste their time. Like, give them context. It's all about contextual marketing for me.
You are listening to the Blue Eyed Devil podcast on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, which, as I mentioned, will be on YouTube very soon. Mm-hmm. George, it is good to hear a business leader who wants to invest in people, because I don't always feel that that's true. And I think sometimes I look at the way the market works, and it's about make as much money as you can at the expense of maybe not providing the best life for those who work for you. And I see you as offering a different way. I really do, as I look at the kind of business model you approach. Can you speak to that? Tell me why you do it that way.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with my background, where I come from, immigrating to this country because of war, seeing a lot of death and destruction. So, there's this deep, deep desire to be a good human being to those around you, because I've experienced death and destruction firsthand.
Yeah.
So when you have that, I mean, whether you can phrase it any which way you want, maybe it's deeply rooted trauma, which I'm sure somewhere psychologically, I'm sure it's there. But I use it as my power tool, if you will, to ensure that I can do the best I can for the people that are surrounded with me and that work for me and work with me. I think that's it. It's as simple as that. It doesn't have to be overcomplicated. It's my past has kind of paved the path for the future that I want to see for my kids. And I think you can achieve a lot if you're just a good person. Not to say, and not to say you can't go down the wrong paths. I mean, naivete can kick in too, right? But I mean, if you have an appreciation, I remember it was at St. Mike's, the high school, and I did camp there. And the camp counselor, I did a hockey camp, and the counselor said, people aren't born bad. People are, most humans on this earth are good people. They come from bad situations or, scenarios that put them in precarious kind of all kinds of issues. But most people are good people. And if you treat them good, they'll likely be good back to you.
One of the opening prologues to my book was a blog post that I wrote that was entitled "He Wasn't Born This Way." And I've done a lot of work with people who've come out of the criminal justice system. I've done a lot of work with people who are in crisis. Mm-hmm. I've done a lot of work with people of all walks of life when I was a priest. And you're right. Nobody's born bad. They're not. I've baptized babies. They're not born bad.
Right.
It's trauma, circumstance, context, war, famine.
Yeah.
Whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And hurt people, right? Like, it's cliche, but it's true, right?
Yeah.
I'm quite touched at you sharing where you're from, Armenia.
Born in Lebanon.
Born in Lebanon?
Yeah. So we came here because of the civil war there.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. And you came at what age?
I was 4.5.
Okay. And you remember?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I remember living in the bunkers, hearing the RPGs flying overhead, lots of, we've got a lot of documentation, photography, like my father photographed everything. So there's our home blown up. There's my bedroom with grenade holes in the walls. It's crazy if you think back that, we were fortunate to my dad and my mom made a decision. They're like, route.
Yeah.
This ain't for us. Let's go to somewhere else that's safe, and blessed to have been settled in this country. And, it's not to say that we don't have our own issues here, but certainly for the time being, war hasn't been one of them, which is, very, I can't imagine as somebody who's trying to save their children or themselves and having to deal with that and the stuff going on the planet today. So,
it's quite a thing to face that kind of adversity in life, right? Like even though you came as a child to experience it, but to be raised by a family that knew war and destruction firsthand.
yeah.
But I'm also, to bring it back to what you said earlier, I'm touched by the fact that it's inspired you, right? To make sure that those who are going through hard times don't have to go through them alone.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the beauties of being a good human being is you can support your fellow human by having an ear or just a shoulder or whatever cliche you want to use, just being there for that individual. I think we dismiss it sometimes. I don't think we really sit there and realize how sometimes a really simple statement or a little bit of your time can have such a drastic impact on someone's trajectory in their life. Yep. It goes back to like those little nuggets or the one sentence. It's like you yourself could be that one giving that little nugget of advice or saying that statement that's like enough, thought-provoking enough to change the course of that person's life.
And like you in December, when you were sitting down with me, you had no idea the level of impact you were having on me in that half hour, because I was one of your 6 half hours probably that day that you were giving to meetings. But in that moment, what you had to say meant a great deal to me.
Awesome.
Right? And this is something George does, is he carves out his day, a couple days a week, I think at least, to meet with random folks who ask for a meeting to talk about an idea, and just see where it goes.
Yeah. And honest to goodness, for me, it's, I look at it like, somebody's seeking my guidance or, not to say that I know anything. I just, I think I've just had the fortune of speaking to so many business owners or people who are like-minded, who are motivated, who have aspirations in life. And by aspiration, I don't mean like, I'm going to go earn that material object or I'm going to have the biggest house. And those could be great aspirations if that's what you want. But, the aspirations for me are just living a healthy, good life. That's the aspiration. It's, would I like, I'm a car guy. I'm a guitar guy.
I've seen a few.
Yeah. So I do have the toys that I want. But it's not my motivator. My motivator is to just be surrounded by good people, break bread, have a laugh, and just enjoy this one opportunity we have on this sphere. This one opportunity that we're here right now, and we got to embrace it.
It's morbid, but one day you're going to be dead.
One day.
Who
knows? AI might prevent us from dying, but that's all the rumors today. But yeah, one day we'll all be dead.
All right. On the Blue Eyed Devil podcast, we often do a quick rapid fire. Just throw out some options, one-word answers, a choice here or there. You up for it?
Let's go.
All right. So let's start.
One-word answers, right?
Well, yeah, it depends on what I come up with. Joe Montana or Tom Brady?
Tom Brady.
Okay. Duchess or Jakes?
Dutch.
Yeah, Duchess of Markham. I'm Main Street Markham. I mentioned it in my book, and it is a favorite of mine. Golf or hockey?
Hockey. We already talked about that.
We did. Gretzky or Jordan?
Gretzky.
Jordan or LeBron?
Ooh, Jordan. I grew up with him.
I was talking to someone about this the other day, and there was nothing like watching Michael Jordan.
Amazing. It was like a work of art every night.
Every night.
Yeah.
It was magical. And I try to explain that to Rory, my son. Yeah. And he's willing to support my Jordan is the greatest, but he doesn't really understand.
I think LeBron's incredible.
LeBron is just a masterpiece of a human being in a lot of ways, right? Like, and has had a longevity of a career that very few could ever hope for, and didn't leave to go play baseball for a couple of years.
Right. Yeah.
As Jordan did. I kind of abandoned the rapid fire there because there's something about talking Michael Jordan that always just makes me feel good. I don't know why. I just love talking Michael Jordan. I'll tell you one little quick thing. Michael Jordan, I wasn't fortunate to see him play as a Chicago Bull. I don't know if you ever did.
No, I never did.
Because I was a teenager in the 90s, as I think you were as well.
As was I.
And it was just past the turn of the century, and he was playing for the Washington Wizards.
Yep.
And he's now my brother-in-law, but he was dating my little sister at the time, and he took his sister's big brother to see Michael Jordan play against the Toronto Raptors when he was playing for the Wizards. And it wasn't Michael Jordan of the Bulls.
It was prime, yeah.
But it was still incredible to see him
Jordan.
play, right?
Yeah.
Should get a ticket to see LeBron once more. I don't know if we're going to see LeBron play.
Well, I think he said he's going to play one more year, right? He's trying to get with his kid.
He is.
Bronny?
Yeah. Wouldn't it be great to see that?
Be amazing.
That'd be pretty cool. Would you play professional sports with one of your boys?
I mean, so this year was one of the first experiences I had playing with my oldest son, who's going to be 18. And we called him up into men's league because we were short a few players on the ice.
What a cool thing for him.
And it was a really great experience to just him and I kind of competing against one another. We were on opposing teams, but great experience. I can't even imagine at the professional level with LeBron and how much he just wants to have that moment with his son. It's actually really touching.
I can't say that if I was him, I wouldn't feel the exact same way. I've started doing podcasting again, and I couldn't help but start one with my own.
I saw it. It was awesome.
Raising dad.
It's cool when you do stuff with your with your offspring. My middle guy, and I think I told you I have 4 kids, but my middle guy is playing. He's drumming a lot now, and I play guitar. So we started to jam together.
It's so cool.
So it's super cool. Super cool.
And I think this is it. Somebody said, "Is he like your best friend?" I said, "No, he's not my best friend. He's my son. But one day, I hope he might be."
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
I can see it one day.
Yeah.
But not yet.
Yeah.
But not.
Still got to teach him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
George, it has been really good having you here downtown Toronto by the lake. It's always good for me to come back to Markham, and I enjoyed being up at the studio with you. But it's nice to have a home and home.
Yes, it is.
We'll call that instead of a part 2. It's a home and home.
Home and home. Love it. Love it. Yeah. Thanks for having me here, man. This is great. Glad we got to do this. And we'll continue. Maybe will there be a part 3 with Mr. T and what was it, Hulk Hogan?
Oh, man.
What was his name in them?
Clubber Lang.
Clubber Lang.
The Clubber Lang edition.
Yeah.
Well, this has been the Blue Eyed Devil podcast on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, 403LC, Google Podcasts, and soon to be YouTube. Be well and take care.
See ya. Awesome, man.